Welcome to the She Found Motherhood podcast. Today, Jane Stoller from Organized Jane is joining us to help educate us on how we can prepare for creating space for our newborn baby, creating a safe place that we can be with our baby and not feel overwhelmed by the general clutter and mayhem that a newborn baby brings to our lives. We also have some great tips for parents of children of all ages in terms of how to keep photographs, artwork, and general mementos in a controlled fashion in your house. All right, I learned a lot in this podcast, and I'm really excited for all of you guys to learn something too.
Welcome to the She Found Motherhood podcast. We are doctors Sarah and Alicia, maternity physicians and moms who have been through it all. We want to empower you with knowledge so you can have the best pregnancy, birth, and postpartum experience you can.
She Found Health and She Found Motherhood is meant for general medical information only. The content of this podcast is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. This information does not apply to every situation. If you have questions or if you've received different advice, please contact your healthcare provider. Always seek the advice of your physician or another qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. The views expressed by She Found Health and She Found Motherhood and our guests are not representative of any of the institutions with which we are affiliated. Some of our podcast episodes are sponsored so that we can keep getting great info out there to you, our listeners. We only partner with companies that we truly believe in. Some of our links and suggestions may be affiliates, and we would appreciate you using them to help fund this important work. Now let's get to it. Jane, I am so excited for this. I first saw you at a conference I was at recently in June, talking about kind of decluttering and organizing. What kind of clutter bug are you? And some great tips you had. So I reached out to you at that point to see if you would join us on our podcast to talk to our community, which, as you well know, are pregnant to newly parenting people and maybe into the toddler years as well, around how people can use decluttering and organization to just take that mental load off. Most of our listeners are people who identify as moms, and moms tend to have a little bit more of a mental load of keeping the house organized and keeping the family organized and all that stuff. Work, which I know is a big part of your business, organizing that, the business and the workspace. So I just wanted to say thank you for coming and talking. And why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, your business, and how you got here, and then we'll get into the meat of the chat.
Thank you so much for having me. I really love speaking live, especially where you saw me. And I talk a lot about clutter bugs, but my second favorite thing to do is talk on podcasts because it's efficient, it's fun, and I'm Organized Jane for those who don't know me. And one of my big things is organizing your entire life, from your life to your business, to your kids' lives, to your future kids' lives, and helping them grow in an organized world. So I grew up in Swiss parents, naturally been a bit more structured because of that. And I just really, that's been my passion since I was 6 years old. And if you have kids, which all of you do, or are going to have kids, they say between the ages of 6 and 8 is when you start to see those kind of tendencies to either be organized or disorganized, to want to keep clutter. So it's also a great idea to keep watch of your kids at that time to help them bring good habits up.
I'm frowning because my children are 8 and 10, and I think I'm hooped.
No, you're not hooped. It's the perfect time to recognize it and start bringing practices in if organization might not be their natural thing.
Gotcha. All right. I'm going to work on it. I actually just texted an organizer who's in Victoria to see if she can come help me with our storage so that I'll get her
Love
back
it.
when my kids are here to organize their rooms. We'll start trading them. Oh, that's so funny. Awesome. Thank you for coming. This is wonderful. And yeah, why don't we get into it? We had some questions around preparing for baby, all this stuff that comes with it. How do you keep it in its own place? What do you do with it? So we're going to broach on some of those topics today.
Perfect.
Oh, and I was going to say the one beautiful thing about a podcast is can you listen to it while you're decluttering.
Oh, exactly. You can be doing so many things, putting up hooks, making labels, donating items, going through your closet. Podcasts are great for that.
Cool. All right. You just start educating me.
You mentioned first, before you even bring somebody new or a kid into this world, you have so much overwhelm as it is because there's so much we need to be thinking about. So likely decluttering isn't at the top of your mind. Likely you're getting a lot more stuff. So I don't have kids yet. Hopefully someday soon, but I've done a lot of research in my second book, Decluttering for Dummies. There was an entire 2 chapters on kids' rooms and stuff. And I went to over 50 households with kids ranging from all ages and interviewed their moms and children to really try and get an idea of what are their challenges before, during, and when their kids get older. So one of the biggest things is before they have the kid. you're making space, you have to actually declutter some things in your current space to make room for the new cribs, the new baby clothes, the new whatever it may be. So this is a great time to also think about stuff you don't do anymore. Hobbies you might not have time for anymore. You maybe used to go camping a lot, but you haven't done it in 2 years with a new kid on the way. You're likely not going to be doing that. A lot of things could be changing in your life. And that's a good time to say, okay, is this realistic to keep this? We actually need this space. So think about the space you have and where this new child is going to be and sleep and live. And what do you have to get rid of? That's the number one thing I'd start with.
And I think a lot of us, I know I did when I was pregnant with my first, had this grand idea that I'd be doing all of the things that I did before. And hopefully you'll get back to it if you really love it. But oftentimes there's not a lot of extra time in the day. If you have 5 hobbies you love to do, maybe choosing your first 2 to 3 favorites, keeping that stuff and the stuff that you rarely do, maybe it's time to donate it to somebody else so that they can use it. And then if you get back to it in 8 to 10 years, I remember reading in your book, there's probably going to be new fancy equipment at that point, and you're not going to want your old stuff anyway. So just get rid of it now and deal with it later.
100%. I could not have said it better.
You did say it. I read it in your book.
Okay. I was like, that sounds what I would say. But really somebody else could be using it right now. And especially those activities you rarely did before kids, you're likely not going to do them ever again when you have kids.
Yeah, we just moved last year and we took it as an opportunity to declutter. I got rid of my hockey gear that I played in university. So that was a long time ago. And my snowboarding stuff I did when I lived in Vancouver, which was a long time ago, which takes up a ton of space.
Exactly. And stuff does get, newer technology. It gets sometimes less expensive. So give it to somebody else to use for that time period. And if you do want to get back into it, get fresh new stuff. It'll be safer. You'll be older anyways. You'll need something safe. So we really want to get that mindset. Give it away now for somebody else to use. And if you want to do it again, you totally can.
Awesome. We've decluttered the space. So now we need the stuff for the baby. Now, in the baby world, you need a lot of stuff for a short period of time. So can we talk a little bit about how we decide what to get, when to get it, where to get it from, what to do with it when we don't need it after 6 weeks? Like, it's just such a
Stress.
It is.
And I think we should, and a lot of times, first of all, it depends, of course, on your budget, how fancy you want to be, what all of that. But you can do a lot of it without kids don't remember these things anyway. So if you are budget conscious or really isn't that important to you, you want to spend somewhere else, there's so many ways to get in mommy groups, there's Facebook groups, there's Marketplace, there in your local community. I bet you there's because moms are constantly going through this. I'm a big fan of secondhand and buying pre-loved clothing for myself, and I'll do it for my kid as well. Even the designer places I shop for my clothes that are pre-loved now have a kid section. So you can still dress your kid in designer. It doesn't have to be new. So I'm a big fan of that sustainability aspect. Even you're not going to, it's think about the budget, how long you're going to use it for, and put a cap on gifts as well. Because when you have showers and when you have grandparents, they might give you 5 of something or this or that. So you also have to maybe not do a registry, but make a list of what you actually need and perhaps give that out to friends and family for just getting a bunch of random stuff that is really, then you'll feel bad about giving away because Aunt Susie gave it to you, et cetera, et cetera.
And that's the emotional clutter bug.
Yes. You're good. She remembers so much.
I am not the emotional clutter bug. I get rid of stuff if I'm not
I
using
love
it.
it.
See you later, alligator. Awesome. And good idea around the kind of the baby shower. We're going to be doing a podcast on baby showers coming up and all about what's your actual purpose of the baby shower and what's the outcome you want. And maybe you want a freezer full of food as your baby shower outcome. You don't need stuff. You just want food, or maybe you want people to come over and help you do things around the house in those first few months.
Such a great idea.
Ask for that, not for
stuff. I think we need to get used to not asking for stuff. Baby showers, like kids' presents or birthdays. It's not parents that are bringing the stuff in, it's everybody else.
Totally. It's grandparents. They're awesomely bad for it. Awesomely well-intentioned.
But you said it, what's the outcome, setting the standards and expectations, because the grandparents want to get you what you want and what'll help you the most. But if they don't know, then how can they?
Exactly. Exactly. All right. Coming up with a list of the stuff that you need and then pre-planning a little bit, right? Keeping your eyeballs on Facebook Marketplace or your local used place or there's all kinds of amazing secondhand baby stores, incredible. In our community, I think there's 5 fabulous ones. So going there every once in a while and keep an eyeball on things. Another great place is from other people who are getting, like, friends. I was I remember people just dropping stuff off at my house, which meant I had a ton of clutter. But when it was my turn to give it off, I was like, just take it. I just don't want it in my space anymore. You don't have to pay me for it. You're like giving the gifter a gift by just taking it from them.
100%. And I think anybody listening, I know that you can jot down 3 or 4 friends or people that are having kids or your community that you could probably do a little swap with.
Yeah. Yeah. And those items really, they don't last they last a long time, but they aren't used for very long. So like rotating
Exactly.
them through friends who are just a few months apart is probably going to work out pretty well.
Oh, that's the best case because then especially if you have similar styles, kids' ages, genders, all of that. So it really does help.
Yeah. Okay. So we've decluttered the space.
Yeah.
We filled it with useful things that we need, and we've gotten either borrowed or bought secondhand or occasionally invested in if it's something that's really important to us and aligns with our values. Perfect. Great. Do that. Now we're bringing our little one home, this sweet little bundle of joy that takes 24 hours a day to care for in those first few months. How can you set your space up for success so that it's not overwhelming and doesn't get dirty and messy and adding to that kind of challenge?
Well, I think that's I don't think it'll ever be perfect in that way. And it's probably a little bit of letting go during that period too, of just that's not the important part. But going back to the first step, decluttering first. This is if you can get rid of stuff that is in your space that you didn't use in the first place, the less stuff you have around, the less you'll have that gets dusty in the first place, that you'll have to be cleaning. All of that can help when baby first comes home. And also just being in a space that you really enjoy. A lot of people have they set up places in the basement the kids might play, or their baby's room is perfect, but then the baby's always with you in the living room. Where are you going to be spending most of the time with the baby? And that should be the space that is easy to grab. Maybe you're still going to be helping somebody's business out. Your husband's business, you still have to be close to the computer, or maybe you don't at all. Maybe you want some of your items that you like to see every day in that room, but think about where you're going to be in that space as well, because you likely won't be sleeping in your room that much. So think about where you want to be in those first, especially 2 to 6 weeks, and make it a space you love so you can spend a lot of time in.
That's a really great idea. We always talk about getting the nursery ready, but honestly, a baby doesn't sleep in the nursery unless you're sleeping in the nursery. And then if if the nursery is a beautiful space and somewhere you like hanging out, maybe that's going to be the place where you hang out. But more often, I think it's more in that kind of the main heart
The
of your
main room,
house,
because you got to cook,
right?
you have to go to the bathroom, you have to, this time comes home. And then a lot of people put emphasis on the nursery and they're so stressed and it has to be perfect, but it doesn't really. It doesn't have to be perfect at all because you're likely not spending a lot of time in there, changing table perhaps, and a few other items for the first couple of weeks.
Yeah, but when you set up your space, yeah, I've never actually thought about that. Setting up your main area that you're going to be with your baby, and then you have a changing space there. You have a
Yeah, everything there instead of making it more complicated for you. And maybe you're going to have naps on the couch if you can, those kind of things. So make your space that you're going to be in the most comfortable, easy access to food, whatever you're going to be needing to do. Don't make your life more complicated.
so clever. I'm laughing at myself that I never actually thought about that before. Just setting up the space where you're going to be so it's useful rather than having to wander all over the house and having these like perfect nursery rooms that you never use.
That being said, I probably will want the perfect nursery. You never know. It's always like we have this image, and I think society and Instagram makes us think we have to have it.
You could
But
have a perfect postpartum newborn room.
exactly, whatever it may be.
With something we're going to market now, Jane. We're off
Yeah,
to the races. Okay. We're going to change societal expectations. Cool.
Hey, Sarah,
Yes, Alicia.
did you have any problems with newborn sleep?
Oh my gosh, I sure did, especially with my first.
Me too. I wish I'd known more about what to expect going into it.
I know, and I wish that I had known to create a sleep plan with my partner.
I know. How can you support each other to get the sleep that you need while supporting your little baby?
Totally.
So guess what, guys? That's why we created the Newborn Sleep 101 course. In this course, we discuss what does newborn sleep look like and how can we help support that sweet little baby to become the best sleeper they can.
While also supporting you and your partner as you navigate this complex, sleep-deprived time.
We talk about how to set up your nursery or your bedroom to optimize both your sleep and your newborn sleeps. And we also start talking about how you can start implementing routines and schedules into your day and your newborn so by the time they're 3 or 4 months, it's well established. Because guess what? That's when they start to really need it.
If you're interested in learning more, head to our website, www.shefoundhelp.com/courses.
We hope that you get better sleep than we did.
And then, so I guess the next question is how do you create a system for organization and how do you maintain it? What's your advice to people around that? And I know it's going to be different for everybody, but there's some general principles you think.
Especially with kids, and depending on the type of clutter bug you are, you've already mentioned there's a lot of emotional clutter bugs, sentimental clutter bugs. There's going to be, when a child comes in, you're going to want to keep everything because everything has been, this was their first birthday outfit, this was this, and you could literally keep every single outfit they ever wore because that's the type of clutter bug you are. So I'd really create, like you said, some kind of system every quarter. Maybe it's a calendar reminder that's declutter baby clothes. Maybe say keep 2 items from this quarter or whatever it may be. So give yourself that limit. And depending on the space you have too, maybe make a yearly box for the kid and say 1-year-old, this is sentimental items you want to keep. And keep it not a huge box, but a good size box. So you can put those stuff in there. So you can keep things, but you got to get in the system of not keeping everything. So quarterly is a really good way. Some people do it by seasons, especially where most of us are Canadians here. It's a good time to do it in the spring and fall because then we're got over those 2 seasons. You can just keep a few things that maybe you want your next kid to wear or whatever else that you don't want to give pass forward. So that's what I like to do is the seasonal approach. You could also do it monthly if they're growing so fast, but that's a lot of commitment. And also just the system I employ is 10 minutes every day. So at the end of the day, at the beginning of the day, whenever new moms can find the time, 10 minutes a day to declutter and organize. And that's a system that when the kids get older, maybe they can adopt too. It's one of those, everybody in the family can do it. Set a timer. I always use my time cube. When you're newborn, maybe you only have those 5 minutes to declutter and organize, but it really will set you up for success in the long run.
Kate, can I just say that you're on vacation recording this with me so generously. Thank you. And you still have your time cube with you.
Oh,
Unless
yeah.
this is your own personal vacation home, which maybe it is. I just assume that people go elsewhere for vacation and you bring your time cube. That's really funny.
I carry it in my purse because I don't know, maybe it's because I brand them. I talk about them a lot, but I've become so used to it because even on vacation, I still like to check in with my clients. I like to do that for 30 minutes. So I'll just set the timer and say, okay, I'm going to do a 30-minute email check-in and make sure everything's good instead of being stressed about it. So also great for kids. A kid, let's do a 5-minute cleanup. Let's start your homework. We'll give you 15 minutes. These are great little tools for kids. And a lot of mommies have bought these from me.
Cool. We'll post it in our show notes. I was thinking on vacation, I was like, okay, 30 minutes until the next beverage. I'll put a little time cube
exactly.
and have a glass of water in that time. That's how I would use it on vacation.
That's not a bad idea.
Awesome. Okay. And then in terms of, so we've talked about organizing and keeping what you're going to keep. Now, how do you strategize with people around what they want to keep stuff because they're probably going to have another child? So they don't want to go through the process of doing this all again. How do you strategize that? Because I guess you get used to what you need and what you don't need and what's super valuable in that period of time. But how do you talk to people about that?
That's a good question. I think that's an independent choice. And it depends on how fast you're going to have the kid. Right. If it's 2 years or 10 years, that's a difference. Is the gender going to be the same? Can you reuse a lot of the stuff? I would, if you're going to have 2 or 3 kids, why not save it and reuse it versus giving them and having to find it again? If you have the space, but I would label it by year, let's say 6 months or 0 to 6 months, 6 months to a year, just so you know where it is. And if that kid doesn't come, then declutter it. But it really is a personal choice on how fast you're going to have them. But I 100% think you can reuse, especially the cribs, changing tables. A lot of those things should be reused if you're going to have more than one child. And you could say, oh, I'm going to give it all away and get new, but I wouldn't do that if they're going to come within a few years.
So funny. I always live in houses that have no storage anywhere.
That is a problem. Yeah. And maybe you have to I don't know, find an alternative storage solution. Maybe that's your birthday present or your shower present for your second kid saying, Grandma and Grandpa, I need to store all this stuff.
So smart.
So little things like that. Or somebody in your community might have some storage and say, this is what I want for my baby shower
gift to me, Grandma and Grandpa, is to store all of my stuff for 1 to 3 years.
Exactly.
Love
there
it.
you go.
Brilliant.
That's and then they can actually see it every day and think, wow, there is a lot of stuff. I don't need to keep getting them more.
Clever. Put all the big plastic toys that they buy in their storage.
Exactly. Block their entryway. So they're like, this is what you got our kids.
So good. So good. Awesome. And then for people with small spaces, so this was actually a question that came through our Instagram.
Yes.
Yeah. What do you do? Like people with small spaces, there's only so much space to put stuff. How do you keep the chaos at a minimum?
I think small spaces are better, and you're actually doing yourself an advantage because you have less of an opportunity to get clutter in your space. A small space will naturally make you more efficient. It'll make you aware of what you're doing. It'll make you aware of your surrounding. You're not going to hide stuff. So take it as a blessing if you have a small space and say, you know what, I'm only bringing in what I'm actually using, what I need. If not, declutter it. And you might not have the option to keep for the next kid in this case. So if you might have to store it off site, things like that. But take it as an advantage and saying, this is my really small space and I'm going to make it super efficient and only what I'm going to use is in here. You have to be brutal, but it'll only help you in the long run. And usually we tend to get bigger houses. It's only going to help you get organized and not put too much stuff, even in a bigger house when you get it.
Yeah, you have less decluttering to do because there's literally
Exactly.
less space
Yeah.
to.
Yeah. You'll set yourself up for a better decluttered life if you have a smaller space.
Yeah. And again, always just borrowing stuff for the time that you need it and then
Yeah.
giving it back to them so they can let their grandparents store it for them and you for the
I
next
love that
time.
idea. Yeah.
It's amazing. It's really quite brilliant.
I'm gonna hang on to that one.
In the next book.
Exactly.
Any other tips and tricks, just general stuff that kind of come up commonly in the work that you do for people that you want to share with our community?
Yeah, the biggest ones is really kids' stuff. And a lot of it is not just clothing or physical items, but paintings that they draw and pictures and photos. So those are the biggest challenges I find a lot of moms have. Again, I would every year make a photo box or a box that you can put in paintings that they've drawn that you want to keep for that year. Don't make it big, just a file size box of the main paintings you want to keep. And photos. New moms, I really need you to do this. I need you to have a photo date with yourself every single month, maybe with a glass of champagne and some other moms. But you likely have 5,256 million pictures of your kids every every month. So you need to declutter those pictures. Otherwise, you're never going to be able to enjoy them or find that picture you really want. There's an app called Gemini, Gemini. And if you download that every month, when you have a date in your calendar, it's mandatory photo date. Sit down, use that app. It'll find all the duplicates and all the blurry ones, and it'll ask you if you want to delete them. It'll ask you first, but it'll help you because likely you have the same picture of your kid doing the same thing, about 30 of them doing that one thing. So I just encourage you to get those photos organized every month, go through it, delete, make a little album cover if you want for that month, whatever you did with the kid, and keep it stored in the cloud so it's safe. But that way, if somebody asks, oh my gosh, I wanted to show you Tommy's first birthday, you'll actually find it.
That's awesome. And yes, I highly agree with you on that. I know I started making photo books. I'm not a sentimental clutter person. I don't have a ton of photos, but I still have a lot of photos of my kids and trying to find them all and find my favorite ones to put in the photo albums is when I get a chance to do that, which is once every 85 years. It's a challenge. So if I only had this curated, the best photos, that would be so much better. The other thing I want to recommend to all, again, I'm saying moms, whoever the parent is that tends to take all the pictures, get pictures with you and your child.
Oh yeah, I like that. That's a great idea. We don't do that often enough. Can't tell you how many my friends are like, they show me their kids, but never them in it.
And you have so many pictures, like I have so many pictures of my kids with my husband because I'm the one who takes the pictures. And I never have pictures of me and my children in it, which is a shame.
Yeah,
The
that's
kids
a
love
really
looking
good
through
tip.
that, right?
I think that's the best part of this podcast. Like,
Thanks,
do
buddy.
that.
And then the other thing, I found this app, I think it's called Kids Art or something, that you can take pictures of your kids' art and it like keep the pictures in your iPhone rather than the originals.
Amazing.
Because I recycle. I'm a horrible parent. Yes, not sentimental. We've established. But the kids bring all their art home from school. I pick a couple. We've got like a portrait, like a gallery wall that we put things on and we rotate that every 3 or 4 months with our favorites artworks. And then the rest get hoofed. But I've started taking some pictures of the really good ones so that we can keep those because they are fun.
That is the best idea. That's called art, kids art.
Kids art, I think. Something
Okay,
like that.
that's phenomenal. And I like the idea of just creating a collage and rotating it monthly. So they actually see it and then proud of their new stuff.
Yeah. And we each we'll each pick one from their art that they bring home or something cool that they've done. They'll pick one that they really like too, and we'll put them all up. So it's family artwork then too. What was I going to say? There was something I was going to say. I forget what, but I love that idea of the pictures and I'm going to download that app. It's a great one.
Yes, it's a really good one. I'm going to take note of your ideas too, because I think a lot of this It's just, I like how you said you're not a good parent at throwing out all the artwork. No, you're actually saving them, because then they're going to have to deal with it when they're older, or it's just more for them to deal with as well when they're getting older or moving or whatever it is. So you're doing them a service too, not keeping everything.
Thanks for that positivity. So my parents are moving out of the house that they've lived in since I was 7. And so they're going through all this decluttering process. So I was home visiting and they brought out these 2 huge boxes. And now, again, we've established I'm not sentimental. And I've said, you know what? If I haven't taken it now, just get rid of it. They're like, no, Alicia, we've put this stuff aside. We really want you to go through it. So I went through it, and there was like my school, like they kept little bits of artwork throughout my school years and my report cards and my, like, not a ton of stuff,
That's
but I
nice,
looking
though.
through it, it was actually really special. So now I'm going back on my non-sentimental clutter bugging, recognizing that it is good to keep some things, but you don't need a ton of things to remember.
But your parents did it. They gave you the box. They put a few things in there, and that they were able to find it and show it to you. If they just had it all in a huge attic, you would have never been able to experience that.
Totally. Totally. Awesome. Those are some great ideas and tips and tricks. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Where can people find you if they're interested in, because you've got your book, you've got actually a great course for if people are in business, kind of decluttering business. Love to hear a little bit about that. Yeah. And what else? What other kind of interesting stuff do you have on the horizon?
Yeah, you can find me at organizedjane.com. I don't go into house anymore directly, but I have a lot of referrals, especially all over Canada and Canadian cities. So I refer out to different people who do that. My main impact is really helping women business owners organize their business, but I also have a decluttering course coming out at the end of this year. Plus I have books and products. And you can send me a DM on Instagram at organizedjane. And I always have tons of free resources to give you as well if you have a specific challenge or need that I can help you with.
Cool. That's so awesome. Yeah. Yeah. I won one of your books at the
Yes.
conference. So that's what I was reading.
Oh, I love it. Yes, the Decluttering for Dummies.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to give it to my husband now because he's a bit of a hoarder.
That's a good place to start. And it's
He's a functional clutter bug. They collect all the things that they might need in the future. And they end up
Exactly.
coming in handy, but then you got to store 3 bike trailers for 8 years, right? I know.
I hear you.
Whatever. Awesome. Thanks so much, Jane. It was so lovely to chat with you. And look forward to hearing some feedback on how people use these tips and tricks that we've suggested today.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for listening. Make sure to check out our website at www.shefoundhealth.ca and to sign up for our community for weekly bump blasts. Make sure to check us out on Instagram or Facebook at she.found.motherhood and head on over to your favorite podcast app and leave a review and a 5-star rating. If you enjoyed this podcast, take a pic of yourself listening to it and share it on social. Make sure to tag us on it so we know to keep making them.